Thank you for joining us for the 4th edition of our UC Blue Ash College Entrepreneur Speaker Series. This series is designed to celebrate entrepreneurship and provide amazing insight and some behind-the-scenes stories directly from some of the most successful business people in the region. Patty Brisben is the founder and chairwoman of Pure Romance, a business that started more than 20 years ago with a dream and has turned into a household name and a multi-million-dollar international corporation. Along with staying very involved in the ongoing success of Pure Romance, Patty continues to give back through the Patty Brisben Foundation for Women's Sexual Health. The nonprofit organization has raised more than $3 million for clinical research and education, and it works with healthcare providers to improve the quality of life for women around the world. Patty is an accomplished author and a respected expert who has been featured in the New York Times, Forbes, Cosmopolitan, and who has been interviewed on CNN, Good Morning America, and The View. She truly has an amazing success story, and we're very happy to have her here to share it with you tonight. Please join me in welcoming Patty Brisben.
Well, Patty, you have had a tremendous successful journey in your entrepreneurial efforts to start and build a new company. Share with us a little bit about how that all got started.
Well, I was working for 4 pediatricians in Montgomery, and I was home on a leave of absence. I had just given birth to my daughter, Lauren, so I was on a maternity leave. And this was in 1983. And just like any other new mom, I needed some background noise, so I flipped the television on, and we had the Oprah of the 80s, which probably a lot of you don't remember in this room, but it was Phil Donahue. So I had turned Phil Donahue on, and this particular morning, his guest was something that I was not expecting. It was women who were going into other women's homes, and they were selling product that pertained to intimacy. And I was really just taken back by this. I mean, this is 83. We didn't talk about this.
Yes,
and
right.
Especially in a small community of, I lived in Milford at the time. But this subject, I mean, these women's lives had changed. They were changing the life of others, and they had quality time with their family. And good, healthy, strong relationships with their significant other. And I thought, well, I'd like to have that. That's great. Mm-hmm. But I really wasn't going to do anything like that. That afternoon, a friend of mine that I shared carpool duties with called me, and her name was Nancy. And of course, first thing I said to Nancy, did you catch the Donahue show this morning? And her answer was, she remained very quiet. I was mumbling. I was just going on and on about this Donahue show. And long story short, she told me she had attended a party the night before in Milford. It was a neighbor, and they had a relative that came from Dayton, and did this party. And I said, did anybody show up? She goes, the house was packed with people. She said people stood in line to buy. I didn't think Nancy bought anything, by the way. But I said to Nancy, did you purchase anything? And she goes, yeah, and the only thing I'm going to tell you, I'm not going to tell you what I purchased, but I'll tell you that when Frank woke up this morning, he said it was better than any honeymoon he'd ever expected. And long story short, I decided to get the 800 number, and that started my career. I talked to a very well-versed consultant from this particular company, and I decided that I wanted to live that life. And working in the medical field, I wasn't scared to talk about people's bodies, and I decided to join forces. And I was with that company for 10 years before starting my own company. And living in conservative Cincinnati, Ohio, stayed in the top 5 in sales and recruiting in Cincinnati. That speaks in volumes.
I like the way you put it in quotes,
Yes.
in Cincinnati.
In
You're right, it's a
Cincinnati.
very conservative community.
Right.
Is that company still around?
No, I would have stayed with that company.
Okay.
But since there are so many people that are looking for business opportunities and advice, one of the things that happened within this company is the owner of this company became gravely ill and didn't have the proper people in place. And so if you don't have the proper people in place, what happens is your business will go south. And that is what had happened with her company. So I had to make, in '93, I had to make an immediate decision. What was I going to do? Because by this time, I am a single mom. I have 4 children, and I have recruited over 50 consultants into this industry, and we all depended on this particular company to pay our bills and keep our lights on. And I had to make the decision at that time to start my own company. And having 10 years with this other company really helped me because I really knew what women were looking for and what was missing and what women wanted.
So what was the defining moment, though, when you decided it's time to make a change, to strike out on your own at that point?
Well, here's how the story went. I knew I needed product immediately because I had parties to do, and my consultants had parties to do. I called a company that I knew could supply product, and so they asked me if I could come to Cleveland the following day. Could I be there by 9 o'clock in the morning? And so I got up very early and drove to Cleveland. And I remember walking into this boardroom of men. So there was probably about 10 men sitting around this boardroom table. And I walked in and they said, we understand that we know who you are. We know your numbers. We know that you've done quite well in Cincinnati with this business. We want you to know that this party plan is kind of a fluke, and it's not going to last. It's going to bottom out here soon. But what we want to offer you is we want to offer you your own business. We want you to open up an adult bookstore for women. And I kind of looked at them and I said, not the women that shop with me. They're not going to go into an adult bookstore for product. These women come because they want to know more about their bodies and about themselves and how to communicate more effectively with their significant other. They're not going to go to an adult bookstore. And so, one of them reached across the table and said, we understand, Patty. We know that you're not ready to discuss this, and that's okay. I know this is a shock to you, but we've studied this. And but when you're ready, 6 months down the road, to come in business with us, we're going to get your product for you. But 6 months down the road, we want you to know that you can have your own store, and you can paint it pink. You can put flowers on the counter, whatever makes women feel good, you can do it. And I kind of just said, thank you for your time. And within months later, I was now ordering from other vendors, but it was good.
So what did you find early on as the biggest challenge you had to really overcome?
Stigma.
Stigma?
Yes.
Okay.
So, anything that pertains to sex, sexuality, intimacy, it's the pink elephant in the room. It's the hush, hush. Good girls don't talk about this. And so I had to really focus on what my business was about. And, people told me I was crazy constantly. You're never going to be able to make a success out of this business. And what they didn't know was I had the secret sauce. And that secret sauce was that women were flocking to these parties, not just to buy product, but to be educated about their bodies, to be able to be given permission to explore and to decide what they're going to bring in their bedroom. For the first time, they could be the deciding factor, not somebody bringing it home to them. They could decide what was going to happen.
So they were feeling a little more empowerment.
Empowered, correct.
Yeah, okay. Well, so being an entrepreneur, though, there's lots of challenges along the way. For you, what was the most exciting part of building your business? You started, obviously, very humbly with how much capital? Very little capital.
You know, it's been written that it was 5,000, but I'm going to be honest with you, it was less. It was
Okay.
about $2,500.
$2,500. So it can be done. It can be done.
It can be done. With determination and willpower and passion, anything can be done. You know, this whole dream board and this, you know, wishing and dreaming, you know, you can wish and dream, and that's all it is. It's wishes and dream. It's the hard work that really, truly ends up prevailing. You have to get out and you have to work your business. And you can't be afraid, you know, to tell people what you do. I mean, every opportunity that you get, I talk about my business. I find a way. And I think that that's what you've got to be passionate about it. I tell my consultants all the time, you can't just walk up and go, hi, I sell Pure Romance products, have a party with me. They've got to see that passion behind what you do, that you love what you do, and that you're going to bring something to the table for them.
Well, one of the things I really try to emphasize to all my students, that starting a business is not the only way to be entrepreneurial, though. You can be innovative, you can be creative, you can be passionate. The fourth component, though, is what holds some people back, and that's the willingness to take some risk. So obviously, you were willing to take the risk. What kind of pushed you in that direction that I'm going to take this risk now?
You know, I think my biggest fear when I started the business, I was so afraid that I couldn't do everything. And that fear was paralyzing me. And I remember going to one of the top businessmen here in Cincinnati at that time, and I sat with him and I said, I am so afraid of doing this because I'm so fearful I'm not going to be able to do every aspect of this business. And he looked at me and he goes, do you think I do everything inside my business? He goes, you have got to surround yourself with great people, people who have the same passion as you. And you'll come out ahead. Don't worry about it. You'll learn to do these things. And in the beginning, I did. I worked every aspect of my business. I wasn't great at a lot of it. But you know what? I held my own and I got through it. And I learned a lot along the way. But as soon as the areas that I was weak in, I hired somebody that was really good to come in.
And that brings up a good question, because how'd you go about finding those right people, you know, in those early years? Because that's not easy to do necessarily.
I think it's not that I ever set out looking for anybody in particular. I think those people find you.
Okay.
You know, if you're out there and you're talking about your business, people will come to you and say, you know what, I just want to talk to you for 5 minutes. You know, I'm really interested in this aspect of your business. Mm-hmm. So along the way, that's where, and I have people that started with me that are still working for Pure Romance.
Okay.
And so I'm very proud of that fact.
You should be.
Yeah.
Because in today's world, the turnover rate in many businesses is rather fast. It's unfortunate because hiring the right people is not an easy task to do.
It's not. And you know, I have found, especially with Pure Romance, if you are not sharing our passion and our mission, they weed themselves out very quickly. They're not there long.
How did you come up with the brand Pure Romance? That's a very interesting brand that you developed.
Okay. So I don't know if you read everything. In the beginning, it was called Slumber Parties. So, I mean, here I am. I'm owning a business really quick, and I didn't know what to call it. I mean, I had no idea what to name this company. So I ran a contest with my consultants. And so one of the consultants wrote this beautiful essay about slumber parties and how, you know, how we discover ourselves at slumber parties and about boys and kissing and all this stuff. And I went, okay, that's great, slumber parties. And, you know, when this company folded, when Fun folded, I always felt there was safety in numbers. So there was 4 partners. There was 3 other partners that I brought on board. And so we, you know, we all worked under the name of Slumber Parties. There was one in Baton Rouge, one that was in New Orleans. You know, I was in Milford, and another one was in Mason. Mm-hmm. And what had happened at that time is 2 of the partners fell off immediately. And the one in Baton Rouge, and I stayed. Our monies were never mixed. We just abided by the same rules. And so in early part of 2000, my son came on board with me, and we decided, he looked at looked at all the financials, and he goes, what do you want to do with this? He goes, you've got $1 million company. And I'm like, did you really think I was paying college with Monopoly money? Because I wasn't.
Yeah.
And he said, Mom, if you want to build this, you're going to have to get out on the road and build this. You got to live this dream. So we went out in a U-Haul and spent the next 3 years, mother and son, in a U-Haul. That was fun.
Yeah.
And we took some of our top consultants, and what we would do is go do morning, we would work with the DJs and do morning drive shows,
Okay.
and then evening, and then on that Thursday night, I would do a party in that city, and they would come see the party, and then they would look at the business opportunity. And the very first city we went into we decided to do St. Louis. And St. Louis is very much like Cincinnati. You can make it in Cincinnati, and you can make it in St. Louis, you can make it anywhere. And so we picked St. Louis, and we left St. Louis. Are you ready? I mean, I let him have the checkbook, big mistake. And I think we had put out over 30 grand, and we left with 2 people. Tears. But we both, it was a learning lesson. That Sunday we came back and we were putting stuff we were in the warehouse and we were putting stuff back on the shelves, praying for a great Monday. And the phone kept ringing off the hook. And I don't allow men to answer the phone, by the way, at Pure Romance. And so he walked over and he said, thank you for calling. And this lady goes, oh my God, you're there. I want to become a consultant. And Chris thought that this woman had attended one of our events. And what it was somebody who attended an event had went to the newspaper there and wrote a big article. It was called Tupperware, the new Tupperware of the 2000. And so we recruited over 50 new consultants in that area. So, and your question was, how did we change the name? So my partner and I decided to split because she wasn't, working. And what big mistake I made in business was that I like doing what I like doing. And so I like developing new products. I like, training. I love all that stuff. I don't like computers. Hate them. So she goes, I love computers. So I said, you take the computer. You do this. I don't want to do it. And big mistake. So where do you think all these new people are? People that were reading about it, they were going to slumberparties.com. Mine was .org. So here she was reaping all the benefits. And so, and then I would call her, hey, I think those, all those new ones those are ours. Oh, no. So we were just going in different directions. And so one night we were on an airplane and we were coming back, and we're working hard at this. And I woke Chris up and I said, hey, we're changing the name of the company. And he goes, you're crazy. We've been out on the road. No, we're not going to change the name. I said, yes, we're going to change. I've been through a couple divorces, Chris. I can tell you. You know what? The judge is going to smack me on the hand and tell me to work nice. I'm not going to do that. I can do this. And so, I don't know. At that time, there was this movie that had been out. I love George Strait. I'm a big fan of George Strait. And there was a movie out called Pure Country. And I went, Pure, I like the name Pure. And then we're about romance. Everybody wants romance in their life. And it's so weird. People never tell you. It's like they don't tell you your haircut's bad or anything until after you change it. Yeah, your haircut's fine.
I knew it was. 2 weeks, it'll look better. That's all.
But people want to tell you after the fact. So when I would go back to do these radio shows, the DJs would say to me, oh my gosh, we hated that name. We're so glad. And by the way, we acquired Slumber Parties a couple years ago, so it all came back home.
What I love about your story is that, everybody thinks, wow, Patty became a success overnight. You know, it was like a hockey stick growth rate.
No.
Well, you just heard her say that she spent 3 years in a U-Haul with her son. Now, how incredible is that? You know, it's a process. It's a process that takes time, it takes determination, it takes passion, and eventually, hopefully, you know, it'll all pay off in the end. Who out there is really your competitor?
We bought them all.
You bought them all, okay.
So Slumber Parties was a competitor, and so about 4 years ago, we acquired Slumber Parties. And this January, there was another company by the name of Passion Parties. And we purchased Passion Parties, I think it was January 11th. And so...
That was just this year?
That was just this year, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah.
So the antitrust after you yet? I'm kidding.
No.
Tell us a little bit about, I mean, you're obviously a very, very busy woman. You've written 2 books? More than 2 books?
I'm working on my second one right now. I'm finishing that up, and it's about the journey that I've been on.
Okay.
So hopefully it'll be finished within the year.
So what's the title of the new book? Have you come up with a title yet, or shouldn't we say?
We have 2 titles, and so
okay. Haven't decided yet.
Haven't decided yet.
And the first one was
Between the Sheets.
Between the Sheets. Now, what was the mission and what was the theme behind that?
It was really, I think it's a great book. You know,
I like that
again,
title,
if you
Between the
want
Sheets.
men to know more about women, pick up that book, Between the Sheets, because it's really a great book, and it allows women to, and men both, to get comfortable with, you know, products. And it talks about menopausal issues. It talks about a lot of things.
Okay.
Yeah, and different types of products, and why lubricants. You know, that's the biggest thing. People don't understand that. But there's a lot of great information in that book.
We're getting a little close on time, but I wanted to ask you one last question.
It's went so fast.
I know it has. It always does. How has the internet really, you talked a little bit about that earlier, how has the internet really impacted your business?
So the internet, for us, that's not where we make our money, by the way, at all. We probably, you know, that might be 10% of our business.
Really? Okay. So it's more of a personal relationship.
It is more of a personal relationship.
Okay.
We don't want our consultants, people. We want them out there because, you know, then we lose sight of what our business is all about. And we're not about selling product. We're about selling the experience, you know, because anybody can go buy product on the internet. You know that. But how many times have you gotten something and it ends up in a drawer because you don't know how to use it. You don't know anything about it. And you don't know all the benefits and how wonderful that product can be. And so that's what the party plan is all about, is bringing women together and having them understand. I mean, even with the different types of lubricants that are out there on the market, we teach you what each one of those lubricants are all about. So it is, and it's not like walking into a bookstore and, you know, adult bookstore and having, hey, what's your top seller? Doesn't mean that top seller is going to be the right product for you.
Right.
It's about working with that consultant and having that, and being able to talk to that consultant so she can figure out and help you make your selection.
How many consultants do you have in the field?
So,
you lost count at this point? I mean, it's got to be a lot.
Right now, there's probably around 40,000 active
40,000.
Active consultants.
Wow. Active. Yeah. Some more active than others, obviously, but you know.
Some more active than others, right?
Wow. Very good. Is this woman an entrepreneur or what? Let's give her a round of applause.
Thank you.
You are awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you
so much. Thank you.